Most people think power is loud, about being the loudest voice in the room or the most aggressive in the fight. But real power? It's silent. It moves without needing attention. It controls without needing to shout. In this video, we're not chasing influence through fear or manipulation. We're uncovering 8 timeless principles that blend Machiavellian insight with Stoic wisdom, teaching you how to outmaneuver chaos, not by force, but by presence, precision, and restraint. Because the most powerful man is the one who doesn't react, but observes, who doesn't force, but moves with timing, these principles will show you how to become that man. So if you're done chasing power and ready to become it, watch closely, like this video, and subscribe for more Stoic strategies on mastering yourself and owning every moment without noise. Let's begin.
Number 1.
Adapt or decay. Everything around you is in motion. The world doesn't ask for permission to change. People evolve, markets shift, technology advances, relationships transform. And yet most people remain stuck, not because they're incapable of growth, but because they're addicted to certainty. They mistake routine for wisdom. They confuse repetition with mastery. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that nature doesn't stand still, and neither should you. Epictetus taught, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. That single line contains the key to survival. Why? Because it tells you that the world doesn't break you. Your resistance to it does. When life shifts and you don't, you suffer. Not because fate is cruel, but because you chose to remain static in a world that demands motion. Niccolo Machiavelli echoed this idea, not through virtue but through pragmatism. In The Prince, he observed that the same man who succeeds by one method will almost certainly fail when circumstances change, unless he adapts. This wasn't moral advice. It was strategic clarity. The fox survives because it can observe and pivot. The lion succeeds because it strikes when others hesitate. But only the wise man knows when to be the fox and when to be the lion. So here's the Stoic correction to Machiavelli's cunning. Don't adapt by betraying your values. Adapt by deepening your perception. You must remain anchored in your principles, but fluid in your approach. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire with that mindset. In his meditations, he didn't complain about obstacles. He studied them. He wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just philosophy, that's adaptive power. That's how a man bends without breaking. Let's bring it into modern context. Think of Blockbuster, Kodak, BlackBerry, giants of their time. They collapsed not because they lacked resources, but because they lacked vision. They clung to old models while the world sprinted past them. Meanwhile, companies like Netflix, Apple, and Amazon thrived. Not because they were lucky, but because they were agile. They reinvented themselves before they were forced to. They moved before the decay set in. But this isn't just about business. It's about identity. The version of you that helped you survive hardship 5 years ago may not be the one who will help you lead today. That defensive mindset, that avoidance, that hustle-only identity, it once served you, but now it might be keeping you small. You must have the courage to ask, what part of me have I outgrown? What belief, what routine, what version of myself am I keeping alive? Just because it feels safe, Seneca offered this warning: fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Life will drag you through the mud if you refuse to evolve. But if you walk with it, eyes open, ego surrendered, you become powerful in a different way. Flexible, calm, unshakable. The Stoic does not crave stability, he creates it. Through adaptability, he does not cling to roles or titles. He wears them lightly, ready to shift without losing his sense of self. He knows that real power is not in clinging to one identity forever, but in evolving with precision. So here's the lesson. Don't worship the comfort zone. Use it, recharge in it, then move. Because life doesn't reward what's familiar. It rewards what's alive. Adaptation isn't weakness. It's intelligence. It's presence. And most of all, it's the only way to become untouchable in a world that never stops changing. Let them cling, you evolve.
Number 2.
Respect over approval. There's a quiet danger in wanting to be liked. At first, it seems harmless, human even. We're social creatures. Connection matters. But the moment you begin to seek approval over respect, you've already started trading your strength for safety. And the Stoics were crystal clear about this. What is popular is often not what is right. Seneca warned that if you live according to the opinion of the crowd, you'll never find peace, because the crowd is fickle. One day they applaud you, the next they forget you. When your value is based on external validation, you're no longer the master of your own mind. You become a mirror, shaped by the next compliment, shattered by the next criticism. This is where Stoic discipline comes in. A Stoic does not seek applause. He seeks alignment with reason, with nature, and with his own moral code. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because real growth, real character, often looks strange to those still trapped in imitation. And if your goal is to be respected, you must risk being misunderstood. Niccolo Machiavelli, in his own calculating way, reinforced this truth. He claimed it was safer to be feared than loved, if you had to choose. But the Stoic doesn't need to be feared or adored. He simply refuses to be needy. He knows that respect cannot be demanded or faked. It is earned quietly through consistency and moral clarity. Look at Marcus Aurelius. He ruled Rome at its peak, but he didn't chase popularity. He journaled to himself, not to impress others, but to keep his soul steady. He reminded himself to be humble, to welcome criticism, and not to be seduced by praise. He knew that the need to be liked is a weakness disguised as charm. And in staying true to himself, he left behind not just power, but peace. This is why Stoic strength is rooted in self-respect. If your own conscience is fractured, no applause will silence the doubt. But if your conscience is clean, aligned with virtue, then even the harshest insults feel like echoes, not daggers. In today's world, this wisdom is more urgent than ever. Social media thrives on approval, likes, shares, followers. But none of that is respect. Respect isn't loud, it's felt. It's the way people speak when you're not in the room. It's the way they pause when you enter. And that kind of presence is built, not bought. Ask yourself, are you seeking to be admired or to be trusted? Do you speak the truth when it's hard? Do you hold your standard when no one's watching? That's where respect lives, in the quiet, unshakable integrity of your actions. And here's the paradox. The less you chase approval, the more you attract respect. Because we don't follow those who try to please everyone. We follow those who remain rooted when the crowd shifts, who speak calmly when others shout, who don't trade their principles for popularity. You won't be respected by everyone, but you'll be respected by the right ones, the ones who matter. And more importantly, you'll respect yourself. And if your conscience is clear, no insult can shake you. That's Stoic strength. So live in a way that commands respect, even if it costs you approval. Let your values speak louder than your charm. Let your silence weigh more than your explanation. Be remembered not for your likability, but for your clarity. Because approval fades, respect endures. And once you've earned it, no one can take it away.
Number 3.
Think like a fox, strike like a lion. There's a reason both the fox and the lion appear in the writings of Machiavelli, and an even deeper reason the Stoics would refine this wisdom. The fox is cunning, patient, observant. The lion is bold, strong, decisive, alone. Each has limitations. But together, they form a complete force, strategic yet fearless. And this is where true power lives, in the ability to think like a fox but strike like a lion. Most people make the mistake of choosing one or the other. Some overthink everything. They stay trapped in planning, trying to predict every outcome, paralyzed by uncertainty. Others leap without thought, impulsively, emotionally, leaving destruction in their wake. But a Stoic does neither. He studies like the fox and moves like the lion. That gap between reflection and action, that's where his control lives. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This is the essence of a fox's mind and a lion's will. Know your target, know the timing, know the terrain, and then move, without hesitation, without noise. The Stoic doesn't guess. He prepares in silence. And when the moment arrives, he acts with calm confidence. There is power in stillness before motion. Marcus Aurelius ruled with this balance. He observed, he reflected, he held back. But when decisions were needed, he acted calmly, intentionally. What made him powerful wasn't dominance but clarity. His thoughts were sharp. His actions were measured. He didn't act to impress. He acted to align with nature, with justice, with virtue. That's what makes a man unforgettable. This principle isn't just ancient. It's everywhere in modern life. Think of Steve Jobs. He studied markets like a fox. Seeing gaps in plain sight, he moved like a lion, launching with confidence, making bold choices without over-explaining. He didn't follow demand. He anticipated it. And his precision came from patience, not panic. Another example, Nelson Mandela. He spent years in silence, studying his enemies, watching, waiting. But when he was released, he led not with vengeance, but with strategic compassion. He understood the timing, he understood the optics. He acted not to react, but to rewrite the future. That's Stoic mastery. Patience without passivity, power without noise. And this is the lesson. In Stoicism, opposites are not enemies. They are allies. The mind must be fluid, but the heart must be firm. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." But courage alone is chaos. You must see the terrain before you charge into it. You must understand before you engage. And once you do, strike without doubt. Here's the practice. Observe first. Retreat like the fox into thought, not fear. Watch the room, notice the tension, feel the unspoken energy. Then, when the moment aligns, move like the lion, not to dominate, but to define your place in the moment. You don't have to be first. You just have to be right. You don't need to speak loud. You need to speak last. And with weight, you don't need to chase attention. You need to move so precisely, they wonder how you knew what they didn't. So think like the fox, strike like the lion, and let the world feel the presence of someone who knows when to wait and when to move.
Number 4.
Your presence is power. Before you speak, before you act, your presence has already said something. The way you enter a room, the way you hold silence, the way your eyes settle, not in panic, not in seeking, but in calm observation. Most people never learn this. Power begins before words. And in Stoic thought, presence isn't performance. It's alignment between your inner clarity and your outer behavior. We live in a world obsessed with image, posture coaches, voice training, charisma hacks. But the Stoic doesn't project. He embodies. He doesn't decorate the outside to mask the chaos within. He works on the internal until it naturally reshapes the external. Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That is presence, not appearance, not pretending, but becoming. Your posture, your breath, your gaze, these are not superficial details. They are reflections of the state of your soul. Slumped shoulders are not just bad form, they signal submission. Darting eyes do not just betray nervousness, they leak uncertainty, but stillness, eye contact, the absence of unnecessary movement, these aren't just tricks. They're symptoms of someone who knows who they are. And presence in its truest form cannot be faked. It is not loud, it does not chase attention. In fact, the most magnetic people are often the quietest, not because they withhold, but because they don't need to perform. Their silence doesn't scream for validation. It holds space. That kind of presence doesn't come from charm. It comes from centeredness. Consider Marcus Aurelius again. As emperor, he didn't need gold-plated armor to command a room. His journal shows a man obsessed not with how others viewed him, but with how well he lived according to nature. That internal alignment gave him a gravitas that needed no announcement. People respected him not because he demanded attention, but because he made stillness a form of strength. We see this even in modern leadership. Take Michelle Obama. Her presence, measured, grounded, composed, has influenced millions without a single scream or demand. She speaks slowly, moves deliberately. She doesn't rush to fill silence. She lets silence work for her. That's the mark of inner power turned outward. And here's the Stoic clarity. Your presence is not about impressing others. It's about staying rooted in yourself. No matter the room, presence means you don't enter a space looking to be accepted. You enter anchored in values you already accept. And that calm, unshakable energy is what people feel, even when you say nothing. So how do you cultivate this presence? You train your nervous system, you regulate your emotions, you become less reactive, you speak less, but say more. You make eye contact not to assert dominance, but to communicate stability. You stop rushing, you start observing, you breathe slower, you think deeper, and you let your stillness do the speaking. Seneca said, "A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is. Likewise, a man is as powerful as he believes he doesn't need to prove it." That's the secret. The more you need to show you have power, the less you actually do. But the more you align your actions with principle, the less you need to convince anyone of anything. Presence is not decoration, it's discipline made visible, it's restraint made magnetic, and it's the foundation of any influence that lasts. Because the man who controls the room is usually the one who doesn't try.
Number 5.
Outthink, don't outshout. In a noisy world, silence becomes a weapon. While most people argue to dominate and speak to prove themselves, the Stoic moves differently. He understands that real power is not about volume, but about vision, not about reacting, but about anticipating. The one who outthinks the room holds more power than the one who outtalks it, because once you're predictable, you're controllable, but once you become strategic, you become untouchable. Seneca said, "A wise man is content with himself," and that contentment doesn't mean complacency, it means clarity. You no longer need to participate in every battle just to prove your worth. You learn that many conflicts are invitations, not commands. And the most intelligent thing you can do is decline the invitation to chaos. Consider how Marcus Aurelius approached slander, betrayal, and political games. He rarely responded with emotion. He responded with philosophy. His meditations are filled with reminders not to be baited by fools or distracted by the noise of others. He knew that most people speak to provoke, not to understand. But if you rise above the bait, if you hold your position instead of reacting, you expose their game and preserve your peace. This isn't weakness, it's precision. It's what made leaders like Barack Obama so effective. He didn't rush into every comment or react to every insult. He paused, he thought, and when he spoke, it landed, because his mind wasn't moving with the chaos, it was moving above it, and people felt that difference. Today we're surrounded by noise. Hot takes, instant replies, emotional tweets. The world celebrates who speaks first, not who speaks best. But the Stoic rejects that model. He chooses insight over interruption, precision over panic, and timing over tantrum. It's not just about what you say, it's about when and why. And often, it's about what you refuse to speak into. Machiavelli saw the value in this restraint. In The Prince, he emphasized the power of calculation, knowing not just how to act, but when. The man who delays his reaction controls those who can't. But the Stoics elevated that insight. For them, restraint wasn't a tactic. It was a virtue. They weren't just being clever, they were being principled, not manipulating others, mastering themselves. The principle is simple. Don't compete with noise. Outsmart it. Don't try to win arguments. Win clarity. If someone misunderstands you, let them. If someone provokes you, study them. The Stoic doesn't react to every spark. He watches, he listens, he waits, and when he moves, it's not to react, but to redirect. Real intelligence doesn't yell. It sees, it prepares, it endures. Clarity doesn't scream to be heard. It shines quietly like a lighthouse, still, rooted, and undeniable. So train your mind like a strategist, not a performer. Think slowly, speak carefully, move deliberately. Don't fear being misunderstood in the short term. Fear being forgettable in the long term because you said too much, too soon, too loudly. Because in the end, the man who keeps his mind clear keeps his edge. While others exhaust themselves trying to be seen, the Stoic sees further. While they react, he plans. While they shout, he sharpens. And above all, he remembers this. The calmest voice in the room is usually the one who already knows the outcome. So don't outshout, outthink. Let your words be rare, but rooted. Let your silence carry weight, and let your calmness become the loudest message in the room. Number 6, move before the crowd. Most people wait. They wait for certainty. They wait for permission. They wait for others to go first, thinking safety comes in numbers. But the Stoic knows, by the time the crowd acts, the moment has already passed. Wisdom doesn't belong to those who follow. It belongs to those who sense. And sensing isn't magic, it's built through discipline. Seneca said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." The man who prepares quietly, who sharpens himself daily, doesn't wait for the stars to align. He builds his clarity in private, and when the world hesitates, he moves. Not because he's reckless, but because he's ready. Not because he knows the future, but because he understands momentum. He doesn't bet on trends. He reads shifts early, then acts without asking for consensus. To move before the crowd, you must detach from groupthink. You must be willing to look wrong for a while to be right in the end. The crowd doesn't think. It echoes. The Stoic reflects. The crowd needs evidence. The Stoic trains his perception. While others seek permission, the Stoic listens to preparation. He doesn't fear solitude. He fears being late to his own growth. Look at Marcus Aurelius. As emperor, he couldn't afford to wait. His meditations show a man constantly sharpening his clarity under immense pressure. He trained his mind to see clearly through storms. He didn't wait for calm seas. He built inner calm to navigate any tide. He acted when others stalled, not with panic, but with presence. He didn't wait for the right moment. He made the moment right. In modern times, consider Jeff Bezos. Before online shopping was popular, he studied the direction of technology and acted. While others hesitated, he took the step that made him look premature at the time, and prophetic in hindsight. It wasn't impulsive, it was calculated timing born from constant reflection and deep pattern recognition. And that's what this principle is really about. Readiness, Stoic readiness, not to rush, but to respond, not to be the first to move, but the first to move wisely. The Stoic sharpens stillness into insight. He transforms observation into timing. While others need guarantees, he just needs one clear signal from within. Machiavelli called this virtue the boldness to shape fate, but the Stoics added something deeper. Your boldness must be guided by reason, not noise, not fear, not ego. Clarity is your compass. When clarity and timing meet, action becomes inevitable. So how do you practice this? Pay attention, not just to the world, but to your own hesitation. Study your delays. Study the moments you stall. Is it fear or lack of alignment? Most people don't wait because they're strategic. They wait because they don't trust their own preparation. But the Stoic earns that trust through reflection, detachment, and quiet study. When you're prepared, you don't have to push. You position, you don't wait for signs, you become the sign. You don't need to be ahead of others, you just need to be on time for yourself. And remember, life doesn't wait. Timing doesn't announce itself. The Stoic doesn't chase a perfect moment. He prepares, he senses, and when it's time, he moves. So don't wait for the crowd. Don't follow the noise. Move early, not to impress, not to escape, but to honor the clarity you've built when no one was watching. Move before the crowd, because waiting for the world is how people miss their lives. Number 7.
Guard your circle.
If you want to understand your future, look at the people you surround yourself with. Not their words, not their promises, but their habits, their standards, their presence. Because energy is contagious and proximity is power. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. They taught that your soul is shaped not only by what you consume, but by who you allow into your space. Epictetus warned, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. This isn't about judgment, it's about protection, not from others, but from the subtle erosion of your standards. Because the wrong company doesn't usually destroy you directly. They wear you down slowly, one compromise at a time, one lowered expectation, one uncorrected lie, and eventually you wake up a stranger to your own values. That's why the Stoic doesn't just guard his calendar. He guards his proximity. He's not accessible to everyone. Not because he's arrogant, but because he's intentional. Every conversation shapes his clarity. Every relationship either sharpens or dulls his principles. And in a world that celebrates noise, distraction, and false intimacy, the Stoic chooses quality over quantity, depth over performance, stillness over attention. Think about Marcus Aurelius. He led an empire but often retreated into solitude to think clearly. In his meditations, he often praised the few individuals in his life who embodied virtue and honesty. He didn't need crowds to feel valid. He valued those who lived by principle, not popularity. And that focus on surrounding himself with the wise, the calm, the honest, is what kept his philosophy alive under pressure. Now compare that to today's world. Social media tempts us to collect people like trophies, to mistake attention for alignment. But just because someone's close to you doesn't mean they support your growth. In fact, many people fear it. Your discipline confronts their laziness. Your silence threatens their chaos. Your clarity reveals their confusion. And without knowing it, they will try to bring you back down. Not out of hate, but out of discomfort. This is why you must be ruthless with your environment. Audit your circle like you would audit your health. Do they challenge your growth or enable your stagnation? Do they celebrate your discipline or mock it? Do they pull you back into old cycles or remind you who you're becoming? Even Machiavelli, the master of political survival, believed that your allies determine your strength. But the Stoic sharpens this further. Your allies also shape your mind, and since your mind is your kingdom, your thoughts, your focus, your decisions You cannot afford to surround it with noise. So how do you guard your circle? Begin by observing how you feel after every interaction, not what they say, but how you leave. Are you more grounded or more confused, more focused or more drained? The Stoic doesn't rely on charm. He studies energy. He watches patterns. He trusts silence over flattery. And he knows some people deserve access, others deserve distance. The truth is, every connection is an exchange. If someone consistently leaves you feeling smaller, less clear, or emotionally entangled, you're paying too high a price. Guarding your circle doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means curating your environment with the same care you give your mind. Because in the end, they are the same. So protect your energy. Don't apologize for building distance between you and disorder. It's not coldness, it's clarity. The Stoic doesn't need a crowd to feel strong. He only needs a circle that reflects his values back to him. Number 8, disrupt with purpose. Most people protect what's familiar, even when it's broken. They cling to old routines, toxic patterns, and outdated beliefs. Not because they work, but because they're comfortable. The Stoic understands this trap. Comfort without reflection is the slow death of potential. What feels safe is often what's silently suffocating your growth. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Because improvement means disruption. It means tearing down what no longer serves you, even if it's been with you for years. That could be a job, a habit, a friendship, or even an identity you've outgrown. The Stoic isn't afraid to walk away from something he once called home. He knows survival isn't the same as living, and peace isn't the same as numbness. To disrupt with purpose is not to rebel blindly. It's to question deeply. It's to say, is this still aligned with my values? Or am I clinging to it out of fear? Stoicism teaches us to examine everything, not just once, but continually. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself daily, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That's not a dramatic gesture. It's disciplined introspection. A life built on intention doesn't tolerate things that drain energy, clarity, or purpose. Now let's talk about discomfort. Many people fear the chaos that comes after letting go. They think, if I walk away from this, what's left? But the Stoic knows that temporary discomfort is the price of long-term peace. When you disrupt with purpose, you don't burn bridges, you build better ones. You don't destroy to escape, you remove to elevate. You don't leave things behind because they're hard. You leave them because they've become hollow. Consider Steve Jobs in his early years at Apple. He was ousted from the very company he helped create. But instead of collapsing, he rebuilt. Stronger, sharper, freer. His disruption didn't come from ego. It came from vision. He wasn't afraid to challenge tradition, to rethink what others accepted as truth. That spirit of purposeful disruption led to innovation, reinvention, and eventually, legacy. Machiavelli wrote, "It must be considered that there is nothing more difficult to carry out than to initiate a new order of things." But the Stoic doesn't seek ease. He seeks alignment. Initiating change may be difficult, but staying misaligned is fatal. The Stoic understands, your future self is shaped not by what you endure, but by what you walk away from with clarity. So how do you disrupt with purpose? First, identify what no longer resonates. Second, question why you're still holding on to it. And third, create space for something truer, simpler, more aligned. The Stoic isn't reckless. He doesn't destroy for attention. He disrupts because clarity demands it. And remember, anything you're afraid to question has power over you. The Stoic reclaims that power by making disruption a habit, not in action, but in thought. He doesn't wait for life to collapse around him. He collapses what needs to fall so something wiser can be built in its place. So don't be afraid to change what's been with you for too long. The only real danger is staying the same out of fear. The Stoic is not afraid to begin again, because every purposeful disruption is a declaration. I am not chained to who I was. I am loyal to who I'm becoming. Power isn't loud, it isn't controlling, and it isn't something you chase. It's something you build in silence, one principle at a time. These 8 timeless laws aren't just ideas, they're mirrors. Hold them up to your life. See what aligns, see what no longer fits. Because real power isn't in dominating others, it's in mastering yourself. You don't have to move fast, you don't have to be flashy, but you do have to be intentional. That's what separates the Stoic from the scattered, the disciplined from the distracted, the grounded from the drifting. So take a moment, breathe, look at your circle, your timing, your silence, your standards. You're not here to play small, you're here to evolve. If this video sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to remember who they are. And before you go, what's one principle from today that you're going to live out this week? Drop it in the comments.